Well, I mean, this is pretty exciting for for someone who gets asked all the time, is there ever going to be anything new,
New. Hmm.
right? And, while I'm not aware of any sort of analogs in Northern Europe, there could be someday, right?
Sure.
Like this, it presents the the possibility that there really could be more texts, more manuscripts that are out there. So I think it's super
Absolutely.
cool. Well, folks, thank you everyone for being here today. Fairly early in the morning here in the US, but we have actually another member of our own Patreon community here, Forrest McDonald, who is a software engineer and computer programmer who's been a participant in and team member of the Vesuvius challenge. And I'm actually a little bit unclear about like, is the challenge itself, is that an organization? Is it an award? What would
So,
define the Vesuvius challenge for me?
sure. So I have a slide on this, but we can talk about it a little bit right now. So the Vesuvius Challenge is kind of a public-private, like academic nonprofit. Um, it's both a competition and also an organization
Okay.
to read the 2,000 or so her scrolls from Herculaneum non-destructively, right? So we CT scan them, we give that data away for free, and then the challenge portion is that anybody can go download the data, try to pull these scrolls apart virtually, and then read them themselves.
Hmm.
And the kind of so it's we've broken it up into like prizes over the past couple of years. So in 2023, uh, a couple of CT scans of scrolls were released, and people could go download them and try to read them. And so the kind of challenge part was that if you could read about 1,000 characters out of it, you would win $1 million.
Wow.
So that's kind of the community challenge part. And there's also a kind of core team that does research and kind of you know actually makes it able for the challenge to run, right? The people kind of doing behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of there's like I said, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There's a whole lot of data. There's a whole lot of kind of politics and stuff that goes on when you are dealing with these scrolls that are priceless artifacts, that belong to the Institute of France or the Italian people at large and that sort of stuff, and dealing with large like institutional things. So it's a public participation thing, and it is also a private team trying to facilitate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, I mean, I guess you've got this organized better than I'm going to organize it, but I suppose the next thing that comes to my mind is what are these papyri? Where are they? It's one particular villa in Herculaneum,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so right in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupts. Um, Mount Vesuvius is a little bit east of modern day Naples, which is on the west coast of sort of like south central-ish Italy.
Hmm.
And I think everyone's heard of Pompeii. And so when Mount Vesuvius erupted, it buried Pompeii, but it also buried another smaller town called Herculaneum. And in Herculaneum, some rich Roman guys owned a villa, and for hundreds of years, right? And in this villa, these rich Roman guys, they had a whole big, huge library of papyrus scrolls. They probably had like tens of thousands of them. And so the Mount Vesuvius erupts, and the whole town, it's not buried by lava, right? These things didn't just like turn into, were completely destroyed. It was covered by pyroclastic ash, which is like pure carbon. It's what you get more or less like after you've burned a campfire completely down, right? It's just that
Yeah.
ash, but it's thousands of degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, whichever one you want. And when that flow of pyroclastic ash hit these scrolls, they didn't like burn to a crisp. They didn't just turn into smoke. What happened was they were carbonized. That means that they were turned into a charcoal brick, just like you would, put on the grill if you're grilling.
Mhm.
So we have, I think, about 2,000 of them or so were pulled out of the ground from the time that these were discovered in 1752. And over the past 275 years or so, um, up until about 2000, the year 2000, physical unwrapping was attempted, right? So they would try to take these charcoal bricks and physically pull them apart and read them. And
Mhm.
that, as we'll see, it doesn't work that well. Um, but so 99% of these scrolls that have been dug up are all under the purview of the Italian government slash the University of Naples. They own like 99% of them. They're under their conservatorship. There are a couple of others that have made their way into the hands of other countries. Six scrolls were presented to Napoleon, like Napoleon Bonaparte in 1803, I believe. Um, and two of those are still like intact. So the French own two of them, and then the University of Oxford owns at least one. They might own a couple more, I'm not sure. But that is, as far as I know, the three countries slash institutions that own these scrolls.
And then, so physically, they must be very fragile, I would imagine.
So I mean, like, yes and no, right? If they're mostly just like left in a box, right? Like they're about as fragile as, I mean, truly, like a charcoal briquette that you put on the grill, right? If
Yeah.
you drop it, you'll probably shatter it. But if you just leave it in a box, then nothing will happen if you don't mess with it. But that is like most things, right? But when it actually comes to if you try to physically unwrap it, you completely shatter it and destroy it, and you probably won't even be able to read it in the first place.
Mhm.
And so that's where like we come in.
Okay, makes
So
sense to me. I was just thinking, I mean, uh, I've burned sensitive documents before, right?
yeah,
And
sure.
so I know papyrus is a different material than paper, but
Hmm.
like I was thinking, whether it would be something similar to that because, I've set paper on fire and then actually
Hmm.
had pieces that were still legible afterwards,
Sure.
but it's so fragile, right? It just like almost just crumbles at your touch. So I was kind of
Uh-huh.
picturing something like that, but I guess it's a little, like I said, the charcoal briquette gives me
It's
an analogy I can.
uh-huh. It's a little bit similar. It's just that like when you set something on fire, it doesn't carbonize in the same way.
Sure.
Um I don't know if you've ever made charcoal. I have not, but like if you
Mm.
put sticks in like a completely sealed container and then you superheat that, when you bring it out, you get like charcoal bricks out of it, more or less. Like that's the way that these are made rather than lighting wood or paper on fire itself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is actually something that me, a non-scientist, kind of needs. And I'm
Okay.
seeing some comments too that are kind of help me see what you're saying here. Okay. They did not burn.
No, they
That
did
is
not.
okay.
Well, they did not burn into ash into a crisp.
Yeah. Okay.
Like they did not turn it into smoke, put it like
Okay.
that.
They are heated, but
Yes,
but at no point did they flame.
correct.
Okay. All
That's
right.
correct.
Yeah, actually that was something that I hadn't actually quite gotten to. Okay,
Correct.
I see. I see.
Mhm. All right.
Okay.
So
So show us what you've got here.
sure. All right. So I got a pretty big slide deck that I'll try to go through. That I think will like kind of answer some of the stuff we've already talked about more in depth and everything.
Okay.
So anyway, so this is the Herculaneum Papyri and the Vesuvius Challenge, also known as like a volcano tried to stop us from reading this. Like Jackson said, my name is Forrest McDonald, and this whole presentation has been arranged for Jackson and his Patreon community for today, August 15th. So who am I? You already introduced me some. My name is Forrest McDonald. I was a core member of the Vesuvius Challenge team from July 2025 to July 2026. I had a one-year contract Would have loved for it to be extended, but that's not how it works in academia and academia adjacent stuff. I guess as you would know pretty well.
A little bit.
Um, I'm a software engineer. My background is in computer science. Like that's what I went to university for. I got a bachelor's in it from the University of Texas at Austin. I also happen to have a minor in European studies. I didn't know about that until I after I had graduated. I've been a patron of yours. I just looked. It just ticked over like 6 years.
Yeah.
So I have a hobbyist interest in the Scandinavian languages. I took a year of Danish when I was in college, and that kind of kicked off the interest. I needed like a language credit to graduate.
Didn't you do the Old Norse class with me?
I did, yes.
Okay, I
Yeah,
was going to say
I took a couple. Mhm.
because I remember you would bring up Danish sometimes, right? Which
Yes.
is always helpful to me as the instructor because it's like, oh, great, I can actually give you analogies from modern
Mhm.
Scandinavian languages. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I took a couple of your Old Norse classes. I guess it's been like 2 years or so ago now, but I had to stop last year. I got really sick. I had pneumonia last year.
Hmm.
And then I started this job, and so I just haven't really had time to do like kind of any Old Norse stuff since then. Hoping to get back to it. But the Vesuvius challenge has kind of been my priority since then.
Sure.
And so I cannot read Greek or Latin to save my life, but I can read a runestone. Um, and some other Old Norse, so I'm a little rusty. So we'll probably keep it to English. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit, but what are the Herculaneum papyri? It's a collection of about 2,000 unearthed, mostly Greek. There's probably some Latin, but as far as I know, no scrolls have been discovered with Latin text
Hmm.
of these papyrus scrolls, and they're mostly from the late Republic to the early Imperial Roman period, right? So everything in there, kind of by definition, has to be pre 79 AD.
Hmm.
Um, so, they were carbonized, turned into charcoal bricks. Most of what we have found so far is philosophy, and mostly dedicated or revolving around Epicurean thought. I'm not a philosopher, so I can't really comment on what they say or what the historical, excuse me, what the historical significance is. But that's the main content of the library. Whoever had it when it was covered liked Epicurean philosophy. Um, Now, the scrolls that we actually have in there, many of them at the time that they were buried were hundreds of year olds themselves. So back in June, we had a big press event where we announced that we had completely unrolled and read one of these scrolls, and that scroll was itself probably, I don't know if it was the scroll itself was written in about 150 BC, or the content of it was um, from 150 BC. But that's about like when that scroll slash its content is from. So some of these were a couple hundred years old.
And that's
Um,
and you might make a remark to this effect too, but for context, we have very few physical texts from the ancient world. Most of our knowledge of ancient Greek and Roman literature comes from texts that were copied in the Middle Ages.
mhm.
So to actually have that physical text from all that from that far back is amazing.
Yes, it is. It is an irony not lost on any of us that the best method of preserving a library is a volcano.
Yeah, right.
Pretty cool. So on
Well,
the images I have here on the left, this kind of shows a zoomed in view of where Mount Vesuvius is in relation to like current Naples. Herculaneum's on the west, Pompeii is on the southeast. On the right here, this is what one of the scrolls looks like. It's a elongated charcoal brick.
hmm.
Um, this is what it looks like pulled out of the ground. I believe that this is a scroll called Paris 4, one of the six scrolls that the French own. This is one of the ones that we've read the most out of, and we'll see some more images of it in a bit.
Well, it does not look
Um,
promising.
no, but you'll see. So, all right. So, what is the Vesuvius Challenge? So, we were talking about this already. But we're a community-driven effort and competition to read the scrolls non-destructively. It's a U.S.-based nonprofit, but we have international participation. Um, So it's funded by like public and private donors. We're, like I said, nonprofit. The Vesuvius Challenge, we both pay to X-ray the scrolls. We give that data away for free, and then we also fund like core research into this topic through a small full-time team. Um, Scanning the scrolls is not cheap. I was at the X-ray machine in Grenoble, France in March, scanning that one scroll that we just saw, Paris 4, and a different scroll, Paris 3. Um, we had 6.5 days of 24/7 beam time. That cost us 200,000 USD. So it's not it's not cheap, right?
What do you
To
mean?
X-ray these scrolls. So on the left, that is our website. We just got a really nice makeover. And on the right, this is most of the core team. I unfortunately was not able to make this event, so I'm not in this image, from our press event in Naples in June. So I want to give like a kind of like a quick timeline of events, from the beginning to where we are like today. So before 79 AD, like I said, some rich Roman guys, they owned a huge villa in Herculaneum. At one point, this may have actually been owned by Julius Caesar's father-in-law. So, a guy called Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesonius. That's kind of cool. He would have owned this long, long, long before Mount Vesuvius erupted. I think he lived from about 100 BC to about 45 BC or so. But right, so it's just showing that like this villa was one of the most massive, privately owned buildings in probably maybe the ancient world.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, mostly dedicated to philosophical texts. This is a Lego model. So in 2023, the Vesuvius Challenge commissioned 10 of these Lego models of what the villa looks like. So I don't own one of these Lego sets, unfortunately. A couple of team members do. A couple of my coworkers do. I think that they were given out to like the grand prize winners in 2023 and 2024. But this is a nice artistic depiction.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
So was this kind of a resort town? Is that what I vaguely
I
remember about Herculaneum?
maybe I honestly I don't know. Um it was nearer to the beach than say Pompeii was.
Hmm.
But I do not know what sort of stuff went on at Herculaneum. The only thing I really know about it is the villa.
Hmm.
Hmm. Right. So in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupts and it buries the villa, like we already spoke about. In 1752, the scrolls are rediscovered. So the ruins around Mount Vesuvius of Pompeii, Herculaneum, a couple of other towns that were buried, the locals, they never forgot about any of this. So, they knew that there were Roman ruins and stuff in the area over the next 1700 years or whatever, right? So they would dig and they would, pull stuff up and stuff. So someday in 1752, some Italian peasants are digging around. Maybe they're like digging a well or something. I don't know. But they dig down really far and they come across some charcoal bricks. And, you know, they really do look like charcoal bricks. So the Italian peasants said, cool, we can burn these and be warm tonight. So they burn an amount of them before they realize, oh, hey, there's writing on these. And then eventually, I think like a combination of the Catholic Church, the Italian, well, I guess there's no real Italian state at that time. But the University of Naples is an institution by then. So between those people, they get their hands on the scrolls, do an amount of excavation at the time, um, and but the story of the next 250, 275 years or so is that we have these scrolls, but there is no good way to actually be able to read them. These
Hmm.
things are too fragile. They cannot be unrolled physically and then still be able to read them. If you try to unroll them, then you destroy them, so you can't read them again. And even if you do unroll them, you can't see the text. I think I have an image. Okay, here you go. So, Jackson, can you read this?
No. Okay.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah, you can't read that.
so this would be the inside, but I guess what when they're first noticing writing, what they're probably seeing is sort of the mirror image on the backside of a page? Is that,
Um,
or is there a
so
title on the outside of some of these?
so actually the title would be on the inside. Like the
Okay.
most inner wraps of this are the title. So whether or not you can see the ink on the charred scrolls depends entirely on the scroll itself, how it was buried, um, rather than like some kind of constant that's true for all of these. On
Right.
some fragments, if you break off a part of this brick, you might actually just be able to like read some text straight out of it. Um, I have some images later on showing what some fragments will look like under like visible light. And
Okay.
so if these Italian peasants saw the right fragment of one of these scrolls, they may have said, "Oh, there's writing on here that we can't read." Um, so how many they burned before they figured that out is a mystery.
Hmm.
But this is what you get if you try to physically unroll these scrolls, and that is why, for 250 years they tried it on a lot of these scrolls, and nothing like they were able to pull out some words and stuff. Some things are were able to be read a little bit, but this is for the most part the maximum amount of progress for 250 years.
Hmm.
Um, so then in 2000-ish, kind of the brains behind this, behind the non-destructive reading of the scrolls, was started by a professor at the University of Kentucky, a guy called Brent Seals. So he starts looking into this in about 2000. He is a professor of computer science in computer vision. Basically, what that means is, can we write computer code in order to interpret 2D and 3D images in order to see something? Um, and then, oh, messed up my slide. But anyway, then in 2015, Brent and his team, they publish kind of like a first landmark look into this whole virtual unwrapping and reading of scrolls with the I believe that is pronounced Ein Gedi. Um, Ein Gedi is that I don't know. I think it's maybe a place in modern day Israel/Palestine. I don't know where, somewhere in the area of Jerusalem.
Hmm.
Um, I have an image on the next one, on the next slide, actually. Yeah, so this is what they were able to unwrap. So these scrolls, they were not buried by a volcano. But they were like rolled tightly and unable to be physically unwrapped. If you think like the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay?
Hmm.
These were found in similar circumstances, somewhere in like the desert near-ish to Jerusalem. They're papyrus scrolls, very small. There's this penny on here that is for scale. So these were a couple centimeters tall, right? Terribly small. But they were able to X-ray this guy on the right, which our images are covering up, um, and then virtually unroll it into, these kind of partial wraps here. And the text on there is something from Leviticus written in Hebrew.
Hmm.
So that was 2015. That was kind of like this landmark. Oh, hey, we were able to read something non-destructively through CT scans. And the main reason that they did that is because neither Oxford, the French, nor the Italians would give him the actual Herculaneum scrolls to scan. So we had to go and scan and, recover something else.
Sure.
So, so that brings us to 2023. In 2023, the Vesuvius Challenge is started. The University of Kentucky, they had been, and Brent's research group, they had been like scanning some of these scrolls before 2023. They had actually gotten their hands on a couple of the Herculaneum papyri, but they ended up saying like this is too much work. Um, can we unroll these some other way? And a guy called Nat Friedman, he's a tech executive, Silicon Valley, bigwig kind of guy. He learns about this challenge. He says, "Well, I have a lot of money, so I'm going to fund, a open effort challenge in order to try to read these scrolls. We're going to give away the data for free, and then whoever can read 100, or excuse me, 1,000 characters out of one of these scrolls, you get $1 million." and that's where the Vesuvius challenge started. These are the first characters that were read out of Paris 4. I believe in the middle that says Porphyros in Greek, which I believe means purple. Um, and that was read in like July or August or so of 2023.
It's actually very, very clear, early Greek uncials. This is not something dashed off. This is a well done text, right? This is you look at so much, very it's seldom that you actually find uh, physical text from the ancient world, but often what you find are,
Mhm.
Roman letters, which are in this god awful cursive that they would use. This is super clear unsealed text.
Yes, I mean like how clear it is in some of these spots, obviously in this one we're kind of pulling out what we'll call like the better looking stuff
Yeah, sure.
because you know all of the other spots on here, you can kind of assume that like these three rows of text are actually have full text, but it's just we can only read it in so many of these places. And like why it's more or less readable in some spots other than others is a lot of technical details that I won't dwell on. But yeah, when you can read it well, it is surprisingly readable.
Yeah,
That being said, we have different scrolls with different hands and stuff. Some of them are much more readable than others. Um, at least to my eyes, and I'm definitely not like I'm not a classicist. I don't know Greek. To my eyes, I've got some of the images later on in this slideshow. It's a lot harder to read than this. Just depends on the scribe and everything.
okay. I was really just
Um,
complimenting the scribe, and
yeah.
it suggests that this is probably for the most part a professionally produced library and not just something, you know, I
Uh,
sure not sure what the contrast would be. I guess the contrast would be someone who's just, got basically quick notes that or they've hired some slave or something to quickly transcribe the lecture notes of somebody who's
mm.
reading from something else. But this looks like really professionally, carefully done.
Um, I think that this one is in particular. Some of the others, like I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and so then, all right, in 2026, we finally read the entirety of what is left of a scroll called P-Herc 1667. So this scroll had been in its history over the past 275 years had been subject to physical unwrapping attempts, which left only the middle kind of core, the midollo, in Italian, after previous physical unwrapping. It's some kind of Stoic philosophy, and you were mentioning like the title a little bit ago. So the title is on the very inner wrap, and that is where, like I said, the title is, but also the author. And so this one probably is attributed to Aristocraon, who is the nephew of Chrysippus, who I suppose are big Stoic philosopher guys from like the second century BC-ish.
Hmm.
And that's where we stand today. That was published at the end of June. So that was the big stuff that I had worked towards over the past year. Okay, I saw that we had some questions in the chat, so I don't know if there's uh,
There's been a few. Let
anything
me let me see
particular in
what
there.
let me see what we've got
Sure,
in
I'll
question
try to I'll
mode.
try to stop and stop for that every once in a while. I don't want to get too far ahead of anyone's kind of questions or concerns.
Well, when you showed the Hebrew manuscript, Frederick was surprised at such a tiny script size. Um,
Yeah,
but I, but
yeah,
I,
me too.
yeah, I trying to think if I've seen other examples. I mean, in the Middle Ages, you actually see really remarkably tiny lettering in these little lead amulets that people would wear.
Okay,
So I assume people have been doing that for a long time. But of course, it's before reading glasses. So
sure. Yeah, that's surprising.
Vance said, can this technology be employed for other types of unreadable documents? Like, say, in the Mayan world, could we use this type of technology to read buried or ruined stela with hieroglyphs?
So I actually do have a couple of slides at the very end talking about other uses
Okay.
But the gist is that yes, you know, this sort of technology and that we employ like core CT scanning stuff, like optical character recognition kind of stuff. These can all be employed in order to read a variety of different kinds of things. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Anything else from the chat, or shall I keep going?
I don't see other question
All right.
marks.
So here's a GIF of kind of what it looks like to virtually unroll one of these scrolls. This is P Herc 1667. So you can see we had like the Midolo, unroll it into about 24 or 25 wraps. And then the black that comes up on the scroll there is the ink detection. I'll have a higher resolution shot. Well, okay, later on. But this here shows the very kind of general process. In the top left, we have the scroll itself. And then the top middle and top right images, these are how it actually looks in the CT scan. So that B image there, I'll have another one, but we have like 30,000 of these images. And then from that, we try to get this D image.
Hmm.
And that is the entire process in a nutshell. So how do you read a scroll? It's kind of a four-step process, which I have summarized here, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it as I go into further slides. So the first step is that you CT scan your scroll on, as far as I know, the most powerful X-ray machine in the world, which is Beamline 18 at the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility in Grenoble, France. And then you get back this massive stack of images. So imagine you have a newspaper, right? A newspaper is a spiral. Okay, imagine that you're looking down the umbilicus of your newspaper and you slice it a whole bunch this way,
Hmm.
and then you get these like little teeny little ribbons of spirals. And each
Hmm.
of these is a 2D image. Okay, if you slice that about 40,000 times, there's your CT scan.
Okay. Okay. Difficult to line up, it seems to me, but I'm sure the
I
computers
have like a
help.
little video, maybe on the next slide, but where I'll actually show what it looks like to fly through one of these.
Okay.
A lot of this is a very like visual thing. So I have more visuals. I just want to get the process summarized here, and then we'll get into it. So
Okay.
your step two is that then you have to take this and you have to virtually unwrap it. So we detect all of the recto surfaces. We use machine learning and computer vision in order to do that. Working with the kind of raw CT data is very hard. It's a very noisy process. There's a lot of extra information that we don't need. So we try to like simplify the representation. So instead of having 40,000 of these images, we instead try to think of, oh, we have one spiral, but it's imperfect, so we got to morph it and then fit it, right? And we call this an Archimedean spiral. What that exactly means, it's a spiral. That's it. How all of this unwrapping is done, it's a lot of math. It could be multiple math PhDs. Um, the specifics of it is not really important to what we're talking about. So just know that it's very hard and it's a lot of math. So then once we have this spiral, we kind of like pull a single sheet out of it, and then we take that sheet, we go from like a circle like this to a flat, surface like this, and you get back, one of those sheets that I just showed you, right?
Mhm.
And then you try to find the ink in it, where you use a combo again of more machine learning, more computer vision, and just like your eyeballs in order to look at it really, really, really hard. And then you get back a 2D image, like a black and white image of what is hopefully text. I'll have more of these, like I said, later. And then you send the image of your text to your papyrology team, and you hope they can read it really hard. With like the Porphyros slide I had a couple of slides ago, that
Mhm.
is what the ink detection looks like. That's what we send our papyrology team, and then they tell us, oh yeah, here's a pi, an upsilon, a phi, all the other characters.
Mhm.
So that's the process in a nutshell. Um, so let me let me get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of it. So like I said, step one is that you CT scan your scroll. You do something called X-ray computed microtomography. That lets you see inside of a scroll, right? So if you've ever had like an X-ray because maybe you broke your leg or broke your arm or something, that is looking into, like the body or something, visible light that you see with your eyeballs, it pops off the surface of you. But X-rays, they go through, a physical object so that you can see inside.
Hmm.
It's like I said, the same way that a chest CT scan will let you see inside the human body. So, for example, this is a diagram of someone getting a, you know, of someone getting a CT scan. You have, I don't, I've been in a CT scanner. I was just in one a couple months ago because the whole pneumonia thing. So I'm
Oh,
pretty,
sure.
I'm pretty aware of how these work. But there's like this big circle gantry thing. It has an X-ray emitter. It shoots X-rays through you, and then on the other side, it has a sensor to detect like the X-rays and the shadow that your body leaves. It takes a whole bunch of images, and after it's taken a whole bunch of these images of your body, so the X-ray source in this, let me draw this. Can I draw? Let me find the annotation. Oh, that's not it. Oh no, I'm going too far. Of course,
Should
the
be.
one time I want to
Yeah,
pull up
right.
the.
Like I said, when you want to
Here we
find
go.
the
Ah, there we go. Okay, so this X-ray source, it goes like this, right?
okay.
So and while the detector goes like this, so it shoots through your body in multiple angles. And by taking a bunch of like photos, right? They're photos, but with X-rays. By taking a whole bunch of these photos, like hundreds of them, you can compose all these together and get an actual like view into the body. And then you have, in this case, your chest X-ray. Let me turn this off. Turn off pen. Can I? Okay, good. So that is like a human-sized chest X-ray. But the thing is, when we're scanning these scrolls, we have to do it at a lot higher like power and resolution. Um, on those Eingedi scrolls, you saw how small the text was. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
teeny tiny, right? So we have to be able to resolve that. On a human-sized X-ray, that kind of text would be too small to resolve. So we have to scan at about 1,000 times higher power and resolution. So imagine like if you have a 1080p YouTube video, uh, and that's your human-sized chest X-ray, we're scanning at like a million P YouTube
Okay.
video.
Sure.
About not quite. That's maybe overestimating a little bit, but it's much higher. It's much higher resolution, right? So on our X-rays, at the most powerful, like about 25 pixels across, will get you the human hair, whereas on like a 1080p YouTube video, one hair might take up 25 pixels.
Hmm.
Um, so you saw that circle, right? That human was sitting in.
Yes.
So that circle is the same one as this circle at this is at ESRF, right? So this whole big old gantry here, that this is the synchrotron at the uh, European Synchrotron Radiation Facility. If you can see down here, this little guy right here, that is a car for scale. This building right here is about a mile and a quarter in diameter.
My
And it
word.
has to be this large in order to shoot the X-rays and get them so high powered so that they have enough energy. So when we shoot them out into something, we're able to look at it with the high enough resolution. So I was at this building. Let's see, I was right here. That is Beamline 18. That is where I was back in March when we were scanning Paris 3 and Paris 4. So that's like that is the scale of this, right? A human size X-ray, is I don't know, 12 feet in circumference, 15 feet in circumference. This one is like a mile and a half, mile and a quarter or something. So a
And
lot of money, a lot of science, a lot of technology going on there so that you can X-ray things that are really, really, really tiny.
And where is the X-rayed object in this pic? Like, where?
Okay. So this building right here that I'm drawing an arrow at,
Mhm.
that is there is a room inside of it. Actually, I have some more images actually of this, and in that room, like X-rays will come in, and in that room is like a pedestal where we mount the scroll,
Okay,
and that is where the X-raying is happening.
I
I'll,
see.
I'll I'll show I'll show more in a couple more slides. I have like um my photos from when I was here just after this. Um, and so I'll show you a photo of this in a sec. But like, so we have to put these scrolls in these 3D printed cases. Here. All right, here you go. So this is Paris 3 and Paris 4. They are in these 3D printed cases. So like one of the first slides I showed was Paris 4 as like, itself as a charcoal brick. So these two guys right in here this guy, that's Paris 4. That's Paris, excuse me, I got that wrong. On the left is Paris 3. On the right is Paris 4. The scroll is inside of a custom 3D printed case. And then right now they're mounted into the Tripoli protective case that the conservator from the Institut de France delivered it to us at the beamline. And these cases let us actually mount them into the X-ray machine, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm gonna get through this slide, and then I have a bunch of photos from ESRF, which I'll show you like inside the room and everything. Uh, so scanning these guys takes about 3 days, whereas for reference, being a human in a chest X-ray takes about a minute, maybe.
Mhm.
And you hope and pray that nothing goes wrong. There's me in the control room, hoping and praying that nothing goes wrong. There's a TV on kind of the left here. This is the TV watching our scroll getting scanned. But like I said, I'll have better photos in a second. But this process it costs like $40 a minute. So you have to have someone on premises 24/7 making sure that the machine doesn't go down. And if it does, you got to call the people you got to call the science team on staff at ESRF and say, please come and fix it.
Mhm.
Um, so after you've scanned your scroll for about 3 days or so, um, a big old cluster of computers at ESRF takes about a month of 24/7 processing in order to actually get you back all of your images. You know, those 40,000 slices I said.
Mhm.
For one of these in particular, we got 80,000 images. That is on Paris 3. That is one of the ones that I scanned when we were there. Okay, saying that I scanned it is that's a little bit of clout stealing, but anyway, get to that. Um, if you scan at a lower resolution or whatever, it's less data. For reference, this one volume, that's about 8.5 years of 1080p YouTube video, like 24/7, 365 YouTube video. It's about 8.5 years of it. As far as I know, that is the largest ever X-ray volume that has ever been created. Um, I don't I don't have like a source for that, but I think that's true.
Mhm.
But if I'm wrong, then mea culpa. And then this is what you get back. This is a slice out of uh just like from the middle of Paris 4. Um, so like this stuff right here, right, that I'm kind of highlighting over right now,
Mhm.
that's the 3D printed case. And then all of this right in here, that's the actual scroll. That is looking inside of Paris 4. And like I said, you get 40,000 of these, and then you try to read it from there.
That's a
This is a
gigantic amount of
video. Sorry? Oh
text.
yeah, it's a lot. This is excuse me, pretty low quality. This is a video of all of the slices lined up, right? So from like the top,
Okay, going
getting it
going
all the way
through it.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, or yeah, going however you want to line it up, right? So this is what the data looks like. Um like I said, this is pretty pretty highly compressed, pretty low resolution, but this is kind of what we look at all day.
Okay.
Here is another kind of way to visualize it, where this kind of orangey red plane kind of goes up through the volume. And then I think this is also Paris 4, or it might be 1667. I don't know. But you can see kind of like the wraps inside of it and how it grows up.
Hmm.
So I don't know, just another fun animation that I stole from our website. So like I said, I was actually at this facility in March of this year, scanning a couple of these scrolls, and I think showing some of these images kind of helps bring the whole scan process to life. So I didn't take this photo. I stole this from the SRF website. But like I said, that this big building right here, that's the synchrotron, and then I think we were right there.
Okay.
And this whole campus, it's kind of like this right here is the ESRF campus. Um, it's like a half dozen like, kind of government public institutions um, in addition to just the synchrotron there.
Hmm.
So this is me. I'm walking there. That mountain is kind of where that photo was from. I got off at the wrong train station, so I had to walk 7 miles with my heavy suitcase. That was fun. This is me on the grounds taking a photo of, some other mountain. This right here, this is the synchrotron building. Some of these I think are like there's some kind of biology institute on the grounds as well.
Hmm.
This is it's kind of the front office building to the synchrotron itself. This is inside of the ring. It looks like miles and miles and miles of like HVAC equipment and
Hmm.
pipes and coolant things and all sorts of stuff. Um, in order to create X-rays, you have to spin up electrons really, really, really fast. And in order to do that, you have to have a really, really big ring.
Hmm.
And using, I don't know, crazy physics and science that, I'm not an X-ray tech, so I don't really know how much it works. But you have to, you need all of this fancy schmancy uh, stuff in order to spin up the atoms in order to get the X-rays to get the X-ray powerful enough. This is what the inside of the ring looks like. Uh, Next slide. This is Paris 3 outside of the case. Well, outside of the like travel case, inside of its case. This right here is like the scroll itself. And then, this part up here and this part down here, they have screw holes in them so that we can mount them in place.
Hmm.
This is the control room. This is where I was hanging out, on my work shifts. Had a couple from like midnight to 8 a.m. shifts. So pretty tired. I know we had some snacks. Um, it was a lot of sitting around and looking at this TV screen and looking at some status thing on here and hoping that nothing went red. This is inside. So, right, these X-rays are very, very, very powerful. This is on the other side of that wall. This is the actual room where the X-rays come in, where the scroll is when you're scanning it. If you're a human being, you don't want to be in here while the X-raying is going on because you will die. This is where the X-rays come into this room, in like this slit right there from that big old huge ring.
Huh.
And then this is the scroll on the pedestal. So right here's your scroll, and then this pedestal right here, it's obscured by this box, but it goes up. It goes, so it goes up, it goes down, it goes right, it goes left, and then it also like spin around. And you need to be able to look at all of the different angles into the scroll in order to actually be able to scan the entire thing. If you think about it in terms of like the camera on your cell phone, you can't be too close because then you can only see like a little portion. You can't be too far because then you're not getting the right amount of detail.
Hmm.
So this, being able to move in all these directions enables us to see the scrolls from all of angles so that we can reconstruct the entire thing.
Mhm.
All right, so I already mentioned him. This is Brent Seals. He's the computer science professor from the University of Kentucky. He is in this photo mounting, I believe that is Paris 4 onto the pedestal for scanning. And then here, like that's Brent again on the left. And then in the middle there, that is the beam scientist at ESRF, a guy called Paul Tafaro. Uh, so at this ring, you know, you can scan about you can X-ray about 30 things in these different rooms all at the same time, right? In each one of these rooms, they're called like a hutch. Each one of these has like a main science guy, you know, the beam scientist, if you will.
Mhm.
That's kind of like the head of whatever is getting scanned in there. So Paul is he's the head scientist in at the Beamline 18. So he was there, you know, he knows what's going on, knows how the software works, deals with samples and that sort of stuff. So he is there screwing this stuff in. This is me at 8 a.m. after my midnight um, shift when I had to change the samples. So I got to um, you know, swap out Paris 3 for Paris 4, mount it back in, and then I you know, took a photo just to show that I didn't throw it on the ground and destroy the French people's priceless artifact. Um, okay, so that kind of does it for CT scanning. So it might be a good time to look at more comments from the audience.
All right, let me see. Frederick asked if you found non-Greek papyri and such. I mean, you mentioned that at this villa it's only Greek, right?
Yes, as far as I know, no Latin texts have been found. Um, I don't know how many scrolls, like writing, has actually been found from. Um, you know, both I'm mostly outside of the Vesuvius challenge. Within the Vesuvius challenge, we have found text in like 4 or 5 scrolls, right? And of those 4 or 5, they were all Greek.
Okay.
As far as scrolls that have been physically unwrapped and partially read over the past 250 years, I don't know the number. But as far as I know, none of those had any Latin writing. I mean, there's still a high possibility that after we, you know, in theory, scan, you know, the hundreds of full intact scrolls that are left, that we will come across some Latin writing. You know, it's just kind of like a numbers game, but you know, most of this is philosophical works, and I guess most of the philosophy is in Greek.
And a Roman of any status would read Greek, so there's no surprise to that.
Yeah, exactly.
And Sarah says, is there a maximum object size that you can scan?
Um, I mean, so yes and no. Also in that room that I showed you, um, larger items have been scanned. I didn't show photos, but there's another spot where you can mount samples, and I want to say that they scanned a Stradivarius violin
Hmm.
and maybe like a Stradivarius cello. Um, so certainly bigger items can be scanned. Obviously, the biggest thing that you can scan is physically is determined by the size of that room, right? Um, what is more the issue is a function of how big the object you want to scan is and what resolution you want to scan it at is, right? So, you know, you can scan something that is very, very small at a very high resolution. So, you know, very tiny, like pixel size looking into it. You can scan something very big at a very high, excuse me, low resolution where the pixels are much larger. The the thing that determines, you know, how, you know, the limiting factor is how long it takes.
Hmm.
Um, like, you know, like I said, our scans took like 3.5 days. And like I said, as far as I know, that was the largest amount of 3D data in an X-ray that has ever been created. Okay, and so these scrolls are, I don't know, maybe like the size of my coffee cup, a little bit bigger here.
Hmm.
You know, maybe two. This is about how big the scroll is.
Hmm.
And so from that, we got the biggest X-ray volume that anyone's ever made. That's kind of that's the trade-off. All right. Any other questions, or shall I continue?
Seeing the question marks for now, it looks like.
All right. So after you have virtually unwrapped your CT scan and you have your 80,000 slices, then it's time to actually unwrap them. So the first thing that we do is we try to detect individual sheets in this spiral. And we've just kind of chosen by convention to try to detect the recto surfaces. This is like the front of a sheet. If you're looking at like a modern book, on the right side, that's your recto surface. It's the front of a sheet. On the left side, that's your verso surface. I like to think of it as it's the reverso side.
Hmm.
That is how I remember it. Um, and we like to work with these. I don't want to get too much in like the computer sciencey part, but these are kind of like a much more abstract and easy idea to work with over just like working with 80,000 images, right? Um, so we detect these recto surfaces, um, by like looking at, say, like the intensity, the how bright the papyrus is versus how bright the quote unquote air in the volume is, and where the bright pixel meets the dark pixel. Maybe that's like the front of a sheet, maybe it's the back of a sheet. There's a lot of math that goes into it, a lot of computer science. Not that's not really the focus of what I'm going to get into here. It's a pretty kind of rough, and it's like a noisy target, right? So we use a lot of what we call like machine learning in order to like train stuff, like train computer algorithms, which I have a couple of images kind of detailing how that works. Um, but this is kind of what it looks like. So on the right side here, on this top right image here, you'll see these red lines going through this volume. I'm kind of tracing over one right now.
Hmm.
Um, those are um, the predictions. Okay, the gray on the background, that's the raw CT data. We fed that into our machine learning algorithm, and then we got back these red lines. Do I have another? Nope, I don't. That's fine. We get back these red lines, then we've kind of overlaid them here. So once we have these red lines, we try to unwrap these. On the left, um, this is kind of like a red surface friction overlay over the actual papyrus surface. You can kind of ignore that, but we mostly care about how these red lines, how they move through the entire surface volume.
Hmm.
Okay, and then we take those red lines and then we try to fit them to a perfect spiral. And it's called an Archimedean spiral. Like I said, your spiral is like a newspaper. It winds like this, but it's been damaged and stuff. So we try to undamage our CT data into a perfect spiral, if that makes sense. This is, like I said, this is very math heavy. You look at like the distance from the umbilicus, how thick or thin your papyrus sheets are. We can trace individual fibers. So these papyrus scrolls, they're made out of like papyrus reed, and we
Hmm.
can see individual like plant fibers running through them, and we can kind of trace those, and we see them going both around like the radius of the scroll, and they also go along the length of the scroll. So by tracking these, like through the length of the scroll and around the radius, it helps like guide this process. Like I said, this is very math heavy, not the focus of what I want to talk about. It's really not my field. This is like multiple math PhDs. But this is kind of what I'm getting at, right? On the right side, we have this deformed scroll, and then we want to turn it into the thing on the left through
Oh,
complex math.
yeah.
This is kind of what that looks like. So this is a cross section from probably Paris 4, and all of these pretty lines going through here kind of show how the spiral deforms. Um, I don't know, fun to look at, very pretty. but how you get here, not really the focus of what I'm talking about today. Um, and so once you have all of this, we have to go back and we have to like manually edit and annotate and make corrections on these. Our tooling is not perfect. When it comes to all of this work, like it's very hard to, very hard uh, or impossible to easily determine if something is like right or wrong. So much of this is like a very fuzzy target.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, it's kind of like when you're translating a text, you can there are a lot of wrong ways to translate text, but the result that you get, you can word things in like a lot of different ways, right? Um, and 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 that, since there's no one right answer for this, we're never going to get that. So we always have to have a human go back, edit, annotate, and make corrections and things. So this is a little bit of how of what that is. This shows some unrolling that we did of a sheet, and like this bar right here, this kind of teal line that we have at the top here, and then this kind of I don't know, grayish blue line that we have here. That is a human being looking at this spiral and saying, okay, all of these points, these are all in the same wrap. I'm gonna draw out the spiral by clicking my mouse in a circle 1,000 times or whatever. I'm gonna draw out how the spiral goes. And then the software, the algorithms can kind of extrapolate off of that to know how it works, and, where
Okay.
the spiral goes.
How to line up the other lines of text.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, you can take all of your dots, you can pull out a sheet. You can, turn it from like a curved surface to a flat one, and then you stick all of your flattened sheets together. And then at the end, you will hopefully end up with something that kind of looks like this. This is one wrap pulled, I believe, from Paris 4. This is not what it will look like, just straight out of your viewer. There is some editing that goes into this. I don't know how easy it is for y'all to see, but like you might be able to see the actual text on this piece. We've done a little bit of like image editing to bring out the ink a little bit more, but this is more or less what a sheet looks like. So I'm curious, can you read any of the Greek out of that?
I can see letters. I haven't been able to put together
Okay.
a word yet. I can see maybe one, two, three, line four down. It looks like Nesoan Parapni or something like that. I can't make words out
Uh,
of it, but I can see
sure.
clearly letters. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes, and so so like I said, this has had a little bit of like post-processing on it, but this is this is how the text is in the scroll itself, right? Like we pulled out these letters by finding like the letters, they leave this very certain texture in the scroll volume, and if you can drill in on that, then you can find the text and you can read it. This is without like any of like the artificial intelligence or machine learning or anything that we talked about. This is just, some honestly some pretty basic like Photoshop-esque highlighting,
Mhm.
going on one of the sheets. I have a couple more slides in a little bit uh, where we can actually try and maybe like do some reading of, So the next thing that we have to do now that we pulled out a sheet, actually, do we have any more comments? This is like another step, so good idea to address them.
Yeah, Frederick had asked if you were using the physical depression into the papyri material itself to detect the writing.
Um, e so it depends. Um, it depends on the ink, right? And so for the Herculaneum scrolls, yes, and I'm going to answer that actually with this slide.
Okay.
So, all right, any other questions?
No.
All right, so okay, so how do we actually do the ink detection? That depends. Um, Back in the day, they had kind of more or less two main ink ingredients. Um, One was iron gall. An iron gall is a wasp. lays eggs on like a leaf or a branch of a tree. And then the tree kind of creates a tumor around these eggs to protect itself. That tumor ha is high in iron content. If you smash it in like a mortar and pestle, and if you mix it with some kind of like gummy liquidish, maybe like some kind of gum arabic kind of thing, you can create ink out of that. Um, the other way to do it is with lamp black or like a carbon-based ink. So for example, if you have a candle and you burn it and you kind of put a glass lamp over it, you'll get soot on the inside. You can mix that soot with, like gum arabic and get a carbon-based ink. So if your ink is made out of this iron gall and the iron content is high enough, then it physically stands out just as brighter pixels in the X-ray. It's like, pointing your camera when you're filming at the sun versus at like a shadow. The sun's brighter, it's more white. You can just look for the bright pixels. If your ink is iron based, you can pull out the bright pixels and then hopefully read it. The Ein Getty scrolls, they had iron based ink. So the bright pixels in those, that was just, bright straight from the X-ray. And that is like that's how X-rays work, right? Carbon has a lower amount of atoms in it than or excuse me, a lower amount of like protons, neutrons, and electrons than like iron does. So it is physically dimmer on the X-ray than iron is.
Okay.
So you find contrast like that if your ink is metallic. Um, bright is your ink metallic? Okay, cool. Celebrate. You look at the bright pixels and you hope they make words. Like I said, the Ein Getty scrolls, these were unrolled and read in 2015. The ink is metallic and they show up as bright pixels. This little snippet here, something from Leviticus, but you can kind of see uh, I do not know any um, of this script, but like these bright stuff right in here, like this kind of stuff. This is all metallic ink, right? That's metallic ink, so it shows up bright.
Hmm.
But that is not the case with, as far as I know, any of the Herculaneum scrolls. Um, they are all, as far as I know, either carbon based or their iron content is so low that they don't show up as bright pixels. So no, then sad day. Let's keep reading. So in that case, you can still, instead of what you see, instead of a bright pixels, you see a kind of like a dried mud cakey texture. I have images in a sec. But you can look at this dried mud cake texture and if you piece it all together, that is what we're actually looking for. That is what we train the machine learning algorithms to detect. I don't know where my slide is that shows this. All right, it's not there. But we'll get to it in a second. So right, in order to kind of do our ink detection on these scrolls, we have to train more machine learning algorithms. So we do that by basically creating like labels and training data. Okay, so here is a fragment. So this is a fragment that like it broke off of a scroll. This kind of thing here, it just lives by itself.
Hmm.
Right? So this middle shot is this piece of our papyrus that is under like visible light, right? Just like light that from the sun. And you can see some of the text on there. There's a rho, an alpha in the middle. I guess that's an omega a little bit under that. You can see a delta at the very bottom. Um, some of it is visible in this middle one under visible light. On the right, that is this same fragment under near infrared light. And you can see more of the light pops up, or excuse me, more of the characters pop up just for whatever reason. They're more visible under infrared light than visible light. Humans cannot see infrared light, so if you were staring at this um, under only infrared light, you would not see anything. It would be black.
Hmm.
On the left side, we CT scanned this fragment and then we turned it into a surface. On the left side, that is the CT, that is what the CT sees. And as you can see, you cannot read any text out of the left side, the CT, but we know that there's text there.
Hmm.
So what we do is we kind of um, we can take, where we know there's ink by looking at it in IR, and we can, train our software in order to try and detect that through creating what we call like labels. So this is kind of how it looks. This is a bit of a sheet that we have, and there's text on here. This like red highlights on here. One of the people on our team looked at this sheet very, very, very hard and said, "There's ink in these spots. There's a pi on the bottom right there. There's a gamelon, epsilon, iota there." And they did this by looking at it very hard with their eyeballs.
Hmm.
Um, it, it is hard to see. There are like you can do computer vision and rendering techniques and stuff in order to see them better. But and it's kind of another thing where it's like, if your eye is not trained, then you won't be able to see it. Um, so for example, like it is very hard for me to spot a lot of this stuff. But after about a year of looking at it, I can start to identify, characters when I'm looking at these sheets and stuff. But these are what we call labels. Um, and so we use all of these like labels in order to train machine learning uh, algorithms and stuff in order to try to find more ink in places where a human didn't look really, really, really hard.
I see.
Um, sorry?
I see. So, right, you're taking something where you know what's there,
Hmm.
teaching the machine this is what a human sees, and then saying, okay,
Yes,
machine, look at this and tell me what a human would see if a
exactly.
human could look at it. Yeah. Okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And th this is a yeah, you've described it exactly. This is a like a nice little animation of how it works, right? So on the right side, this shows how we do something called training. On the right side, this is a human created like, annotation. This is where we know that there's the ink. On the left side is the CT scan representation. We can't see any ink in that. In the middle is our machine learning algorithm. We take a little chunk from the CT scan on the left, we feed it into the algorithm, and then by looking at the labels that the human has created, where we know where the ink is, we'll either say, yes, there's ink here, but no, there's not ink here. And that teaches the model um, kind of how to find ink. The actual way that machine learning works is a lot of math and calculus and chain rule and derivatives that I'm not going to get into, mostly because it's not my field. But that is a 1,000-foot overview. And so
Mhm.
once you have done this training, um, then you can actually go and do the ink detection. So this is a different fragment. So now what we're doing is we're looking at a different fragment, but we're sending it through that same pipeline, right? So we have the fragment on the left, we run it through the machine, the algorithm that we trained in the middle, and it tells us if it thinks that there's ink or not. And then on
Mhm.
the right, and of course, at least on my screen, our images are covering part of it. It gives out more text. And this is what we hope we get when we run our ink detection machine learning on our scrolls, right? We get some more text out of here that looks like Greek.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's impressive. And on my screen, at any rate, it's not blocked by our pictures.
Oh,
So,
okay, good. On my screen, our images are on the right side, so but I can see like what is that, a heta at the top? I don't want to show off my terrible Greek skills, but it looks like text, right?
mhm.
Okay. So I think that, maybe we were asking like, what does this texture actually look like? Okay, so on the left, this is a close-up slice of of some of our X-rays. I think this is from Paris 4. On the right, the highlighted red stuff, that's ink. That is the texture. This is the output. This is what the machine learning algorithm told us. Hey, these pixels right here, they're ink. Um, and when you kind of pull all of these out, you get this right here. So I am curious if you see a letter here.
Uh, looks like a pie made by
Exactly.
the, okay.
Yeah, it's a pie. So there's the top stroke. Here is the leg. And then here is the other leg. And so this is, no machine learning or algorithms or whatever were used to create this. This is the actual texture that we pulled out of the scroll in order to read a pie here.
Hmm.
Um, so pretty cool. So like I said, so this whole machine learning, training, inference thing is an iterative process.
Hmm.
So, we get those red highlights that I showed you. Um, we try to read some scrolls. In some places it's easy to read, in other places it's harder to read. We go in, correct what is wrong, we retrain, we re-inference, we reread, and we do this process a whole lot of times in order to, at the end of the day, to try to get some readable text, which I think I might have. Yeah, after the slide. So, okay. So now you've, detected your ink and everything. The final thing to do is to read it. So you take the image I'm about to show you and you send it to your papyrology team and you hope and pray really hard that they can read it. So this is what we might send them. Um, so what do you think about this text? Is this easier or harder to read than some of the other stuff?
You've shown me pictures that look a little easier, but
Yeah.
I've actually seen medieval manuscripts in the flesh that were harder to read than this.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, well, I'll take that as a great compliment because those were not buried by a volcano.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I can actually make out, true words here.
Uh-huh.
I feel like in line 6 at the end, I'm seeing tuto. Uh, like I'm sure that a, a Greek uh, paleographer
Yeah.
could work this out. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So I've not particularly worked with like the papyrology team themselves, watching them do it, but right after our press release, I found like a YouTube channel of an actual papyrologist reading some of the text, and he can just like look at this and he's like, oh yeah, just boom, 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 boom. Like it is extremely impressive. Like when I think of like I don't know, like so I took your Old Norse class. We looked at the Codex Regius manuscript a
Hmm.
couple of times. So like my Old Norse is pretty rusty. But like when I look at like Thrymskvida, it's my favorite poem. I can look at that text, and since I know what a lot of the paragraphs already say, I'm like, okay, yeah, it says this, it says this.
Yeah.
But when it comes to stuff like this, like you're actually finally getting text. So anyway, we take this, we send it to the papyrology team, and they give us this, some actual
That'll work.
actual Greek text.
Yeah.
And so somehow they were able to read all of that, um, which is pretty cool.
Well, so I was right about tuto, although I missed the iota at the end. And of course, I mean, it's a good reminder that often in the ancient world they did not use word separation.
Hmm.
Um, I did not see the diacritics on the.
So I believe that the diacritics um,
It
were
seems,
all added by the papyrology
yeah, I
team.
was gonna say it seems like an editorial decision, and the
Yes.
dots underneath the letters show like we're assuming that's what's there, but we don't 100% know that that's what
Um,
we're seeing. I
I
think
I'm not exactly sure.
that's
Okay.
usually
So for ex
it's usually
yes.
what that means. It's like we see a
Okay.
letter here, but we're not
You mean
100%.
like you mean like this dot right
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
Okay. Okay, interesting. And then or like, this right here is, where I guess that's a an assumption of the text there, but it's not readable.
yeah. It's
Um,
filling that's filling in a blank. The dot
okay.
is a little more confidence. Like there's a letter here.
Okay.
I can't 100% see all of it, but it's probably this.
Mhm. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I guess like I think all the word separators, um, and like the periods, yeah, I think we've got one period right there. I guess those are all added by the papyrology team, 'cause I don't think they use any of this in the original manuscript. I guess this is
The,
this is for someone to actually try to read and consume.
yeah, the period might be there, but there wouldn't be other. The dash certainly isn't to show
Sure.
words. So, I mean, they're writing right up to the edge of the margin, which is typical.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is basically the last step. And then what does it say? I actually have the translation here. I don't know. If you want to read it, go for it. Yeah.
But this is also like I don't know, there's something really satisfying to me about this has been buried for 2000 years. It's brought to the surface, it's read in this incredibly painstaking high-tech process. And what do you get at the
Mhm.
end? It's like it sounds
It's
exactly like what you'd expect a Greek to sound like 2000 years ago who's sitting around philosophizing, right? This isn't that different
uh
from reading like surviving Epictetus or something.
right, yeah. So I'm not, like I've had some questions, about like, oh, like what do you think about like the content of the scrolls? And I'm like, I don't want to be a party pooper, but like I don't what the scrolls say is not that's not really my interest, right?
Hmm.
It would be very cool to find something that isn't philosophy. I'm sure that we will. But as long as we're like pulling up, you know, Greek guys philosophizing about stuff, it's that part of it is less interesting to me. The whole tech part to get here is is the interesting part for me.
Sure, we've
But
all got
right,
our thing.
but this is, this right here, this is the end goal, right? We
Yeah.
got this from a whole lot of hard work and an X-ray of a scroll. So, and then boom, done. There you go. You have read a scroll that was buried by Mount Vesuvius nearly 2,000 years ago.
I think it's
So
extraordinary. And
yeah. So yeah, we're all very proud. It's been a very cool thing to work on.
yeah, and you've explained it very well. I
I
mean,
appreciate that.
clearly 84 minutes ago, I didn't know.
Oh,
Uh,
has it been that long?
well, yeah, but it's been a good 84 minutes.
Okay, I'm all right.
Uh,
I'm glad.
I didn't understand, even what exactly had happened physically here,
Sure.
right? Because I was thinking about it, like I said, with the analogy of like, well, I've burned a sensitive document,
Hmm.
right? And it's not
Hmm.
really the
Nope.
right analogy. Um, but also, I mean, just the amount that goes into this, right? I mean, it's not just that this isn't a handheld scanning device and a laptop. This is some of the most
No.
powerful technology in the world.
As far as I know, um, it is the most powerful X-ray machine in the world that we have
Yeah.
to scan these on. Like, that being said, we are trying to not have to require the most powerful X-ray machine in the world. Um, but in a lot of these things, and these sorts of processes, you have to spend more money and time and compute power and all and resources in order to, figure it out the first time. And then you can optimize it once you kind of have, once we've unrolled one scroll, we can use what we've learned in order to scan at like a lower resolution, cheaper or whatever, to try to read more. And that's actually, so we have like
Sure.
another phase of the challenge going on right now. And that is the focus, right? Where the next goal is trying to read scrolls that are about 1/100th the size,
Okay.
which means, instead of it costing $200,000 to scan it, it would cost about 1,000 or $2,000 to scan it. It's just
Huge,
that, yeah,
huge difference.
exactly. Exactly. And, we want to scan all, I want to say that there are about 400, 300 or so ish, like full scrolls that are still intact. We would like to scan all of them, but if all of them take 3 days and $100,000 to scan, that's pretty tricky. But if it takes
Yeah.
2 hours and $1,000, much more, much more, much more feasible. Okay, I do have a couple more slides to go through, but kind of quick. Um, so. I think, I think on the Patreon post, you kind of wondered, like, what else is all of this applicable? And I think maybe someone else asked this too. So, what else can we, like, read and target with this kind of stuff? So, like I already mentioned, there's the Angeti Scrolls.
Hmm.
Um, there's something called the Jerash Silver Amulet. This is, I don't remember. I think this is like an also ancient Mediterranean world. artifact, piece of metal that had writing hammered into it, folded over, rusted. You can't unfold this without destroying it, but they X-rayed it and we're able to find some text in here. You
Huh.
can see the actual like imprint of some text there and
Yeah.
there. So kind of cool. Um, this there's something else called the Brian collection. These are, I want to say this is like a bunch of postmasters letters. There's about 500 or 600 of them from like the 1600s or 1700s. Like he had like a foot locker of all these letters that have been folded up very tight. Can't unroll them, can't unfold them, otherwise you'll destroy them. So they took them, they X-rayed them, and then you get, this guy on the right. That's the unfolded sheet, and you can see the actual like kind of like critical text that they pulled out
Yeah.
here, like right here.
Looks like
Um,
it's French.
I have no idea. I kind of just pulled these out from doing some Googling and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but like the a lot of these techniques, we can use these for other kind of document retrieval like these. Obviously, like the Herculaneum scrolls are kind of the biggest, especially in the Western world, the biggest collection. I know that there's a lot of like prayer scrolls and like birch bark scrolls and stuff from maybe
Hmm.
like the like Indian subcontinent that this could be applied to. But like more general, a lot of the techniques that we use with CT scanning and trying to read stuff out of CT scanning actually comes from the medical world.
Hmm.
I showed like a chest CT scan at the beginning. That is where a lot of this stuff comes from. A lot of the software and machine learning and techniques that we use have a lot of overlap with the medical field. For example, they want to identify a cancer cell in a brain or something.
Sure.
They'll CT scan your brain, or maybe they want to like find a blockage in like an artery or something. You CT scan for that. Um, I don't want to make any claims on like whether or not, you can machine learn to do it better than someone, whatever. But anyway, that's where a lot of like the overlap is, where a lot of this kind of technology is done today. Um, did did solicit a couple of questions. I saw one question on the Discord from at Gudenruben. What are your hopes for what could be found in the scrolls? Like I already kind of mentioned that philosophy is not my deal, but I think it would be cool. I've got two things. I want to find art in the scrolls. Um, as far as I know, no like 2D, drawn art has been found. I would love to find some art in the scrolls. I want to see, I don't know, like I think manuscript writers in like the Middle Ages, especially in like Europe and England, they drew snails, in the margins of stuff, fencing or whatever. I would
Well,
like to see
and
something like that in one of these.
some of the very few ancient manuscripts that are preserved do have 2D art in them, so it
Okay.
wouldn't be out of place to expect that that could
Mhm.
exist on some of these. Yeah. Just
Um,
thinking
so
about like Bible manuscripts from the 300s that survive in fragments here and there. You do see some physical art. So yeah, that's
huh,
possible. That's a
cool.
cool thought.
All right, I didn't know that. But yeah, all right. I'd like to find some art. A couple other questions. These were not from the Discord, but these were asked on like a forum post from like right after we did the release in June. What kind of like features is the model picking up? I spoke about this a little bit, but like when it comes to like finding the ink, it is this like mud, like caked mud, dried mud, like caked makeup kind of texture. That is what the model picks up. It looks physically different in the CT scan than the papyrus itself. That's what it finds.
Hmm.
Another good question I found was, do we have a sense of like what proportion of the text is actually retrievable? And this varies a lot with on like a scroll to scroll basis, but for some of these scrolls, especially the kind of more the inner wraps where they're more protected by like the the burning or charring or whatever from the outside, we can actually recover almost 100%, right? Like on
Well,
on the other sheet that I showed you, the papyrologists were able to pull out like almost full rows of text. And that is with and that's like now, right? With a couple more years of improvements to how we do the X-raying, how we do the sheet pulling out, how we do the ink detection, we could keep improving and get something that is much more readable than what I showed you. But if they're already reading this on some of these, I think it entirely depends on the state of preservation, but I think that for some of these scrolls, in some parts of them, we could pull out 100% of the text.
And how many
Uh,
words is that in one of these typically?
um, okay, let me think. Uh, okay. So, all right, that's a good question. I'm gonna estimate this really quick. Okay, so for our largest scroll that we've read the most out of, that is Paris 4, we have about 130 columns of text.
Okay.
Okay, each of these columns of text is probably about 20 rows,
Hmm.
and each of these rows, I don't know, 20 characters ish. So, so this is one of the largest, so I don't know, that's maybe like 10,000 words in a scroll, roughly.
So one implication of that, it strikes me, is that if some of these were, destroyed in the 1700s or so, more or less at random, others have been destroyed by trying to physically unwrap them, you're not necessarily going to find complete works because 10,000
Um,
words isn't necessarily the entire book, whatever exactly the book is, right? So you may find,
sure.
like here's the first quarter of this treatise or something like that, or this manuscript is the first quarter and this manuscript is the third quarter of it, but we don't know where the second quarter is. That kind of situation could happen.
Yes, that is certainly the case for a lot of these. The one that we unrolled fully, 1667, that is the inner 25 wraps. So who knows how big the scroll was before people tried to physically unroll it. So
Sure.
we've only got, you know, we only have a portion of it. How big it was originally, I don't know. On some of these, also, some parts of the scrolls are like so mangled that we maybe cannot read from truly the bottom to the very top.
Hmm.
On 1667, we weren't able to read the top couple of layers. Um, how much of that is our software is just not yet good enough to do that, and how much of it is that text is truly lost and will never be able to be recovered, even if it is somewhere in the X-ray.
Hmm.
Hard to answer. But yes, a lot of these will be like partial readings. Um, you know, depending on just like how much of the scroll is there, right? If the sheet's not there, we can't read it.
Right. Right.
Mhm. Um, let's see. We already spoke a little bit about whether fields of work is this applicable to. Um, so yeah, that is it. Um, you can find me on the Vesuvius Challenge Discord. I am at Forrest, and you can find me on your Patreon Discord, also at Forrest.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, of
There,
course.
there was one remark here.
Oh
Adrian,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do the rest of the chat.
but he was commenting about the ink. He said that oak galls contain tannin, which is mixed and reacts with iron sulfate, and that carbon ink sticks mostly to the surface, but the iron gall ink is actually absorbed by the material. So that's why papyri are
Okay,
relatively easy to reuse. You could rub or wash off the carbon ink.
interesting.
And Lizani offers you scientific help. Lizani's done some work on similar.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, hey, come join us at the Vesuvius Challenge Discord. We'll take any help you want to give us.
He said, as my final engineering design project at university, I designed a neutron beam stop for a neutron radiography facility.
Okay. Hmm. Cool.
So this is all, I mean, I'm quite open about saying I am not a physical scientist, so the stuff often is a
Not
little
either.
bit beyond my ken. But you've made it a, a substantial amount clearer to me.
I
Uh,
appreciate that. It's been fun to talk about it. I don't like do I think this is the first time I've ever done any kind of presentation or interview on it. Besides presenting this to my parents yesterday, that's kind of a practice run. So it's been a lot of fun to chat about it.
well, you've done a super job of it. I mean, keep
Thank you.
this, do this again for other folks because I mean,
Sure.
this was exceptionally well done,
Thank
uh,
you.
and excellent choice on the visuals. Uh,
Thank you. Yeah.
because
I
that
a lot of them were kind of ripped from our website or something, but I think I was able to speak about them pretty well.
oh well, they work super in this context. Um, Other questions in the chat? Questions, remarks? We've got a lot of kind remarks there.
Uh, I appreciate that. I'm trying to see if I can't pull them up because now the Zoom interface. I'll look at it in a sec. I don't want to. Oh, okay, there it goes. Hey, all right, there we go. I appreciate that, everyone. Those are some very nice words. No, very nice of everyone. Thanks. Yeah, thank you to everyone for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun to chat about. I've at least in the Discord, have given a lot of updates over the past I don't know 2 years on this stuff. So it's very cool to come on and actually get to like talk about it and stuff.
Yeah, very interesting. And I mean, like, I'm going to be excited to hear about what else comes out of this because clearly
Sure.
this is we're at the beginning of
Yes, absolutely.
of
We've got. I think we have right now we have about 40 scrolls that we have left to read that we have already X-rayed.
hmm,
We hope that once we've read all of these, then we can get other people to say, "Hey," mostly, we want the Italians to say, "Hey, yes, you can scan all the rest of our stuff."
yeah, sure.
Um,
Right.
so we have to show that we can do it first before we can convince people to fork over their artifacts. Of course, I mean. I'm still kind of surprised that, the Institut France let me handle some of their stuff. Um, so a little, it was I don't know, that was a very cool feeling, having something in my hands like, oh, this is a priceless artifact. This was given to Napoleon 223 years ago. But something that is cool is that, Napoleon, like he was I think a pretty learned guy, right? And, when he went and tried to conquer Egypt, I know he took a lot of scientists and stuff with him. So, um, being on part of the team that helps read these texts that were given to Napoleon that I'm sure I don't know he at least thought of for a little bit and said, wouldn't it be cool to read this one day?
Hmm.
It's a very neat historical through line.
Yep, it connects you not just with the people who produced it, but the other people
Mhm.
that have wondered at it, including very
Exactly. Yeah,
famous names.
exactly. This has like been a 275-year long process. Um and I'm just, very thankful that I've been able to contribute to it.
I understand. I feel you. That's much how I feel. And,
Mm,
perhaps holding the Codex Regius or Kraugaus, right? There's,
sure.
because you also get the marginal notes from other people who have read it down the
Mhm.
centuries, and you it puts you in context as one of many people over many centuries who have wondered at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Forrest, I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your
Yeah, thank you so
explanation.
much, Jackson. This has been a ton of fun.
Well, for me too, and it looks like for everybody else who's been here.
I'm
So
glad to hear it.
keep us updated.
Will do. Yeah.
And yeah, for now, I'm going to wish everybody for beautiful Colorado all the best.
All right. Yeah. Signing off from Austin, Texas. So, all right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.